The incredible thing about marriage is that the practices that make a strong marriage really don't change over time. You're likely not to hear a bunch of creative stuff you've never heard before in your life about marriage as we get together for this conference. But what I can tell you in my own life is every single time I do marriage counseling, I do premarital counseling, I teach a conference like this, God uses it to actually strengthen my own marriage. And here's why. It's because I'm reminded of practices that I already knew that maybe I had begun to get lazy about. Maybe I had begun to put on the back burner because life was busy or whatever else. And so whether you're 105 or you're 25 and you're married, there's never going to come a point where you can just go, I'm just going to kick my feet up. We've been married now for 40 years or 50 years or 20 years or 6 months or whatever it is. So it doesn't really matter anymore that I practice being kind or that I make it a point to really have time to get together to communicate, or that I continue to date my mate, or any of those things. You never get to a point where you get to throw your feet up and say, I can just coast from here on out because we've been going so well for so long. It's similar to our relationship with the Lord. This is how relationships work. You're never going to get to a point where you don't need to be in the Word of God. You're never going to get to a point where you don't need God's forgiveness. And the same is true in our relationship with our spouse. We're not going to be so much learning new material as we're going to be reminding each other and challenging each other that if you choose to neglect these practices, you do it at your own risk, because relationships are dynamic, and our spouses, our children, they need us today, they need us 6 months from now, they need us a year from now. We never get to just go on vacation from being who God's called us to be. So I'm looking forward to really helping us remember and challenging us to these practices. And even myself, as I go through this, I know that it's going to strengthen my own marriage. So I look forward for us to remember together.